Hello, it's Karen Burniston, and I'm here with an assembly video for one of my die sets. This is number 1015, the house and fence pop-up, and you can check out all of my designs at karenburniston.com. I'm going to decorate my scene festively for a winter card today, but of course this house and fence can be used year-round for any theme. So if you are talking bang for your buck, this is definitely the die you need, because that generic pop-up floating floor, can you imagine everything else you'll be able to do with that? And that's where we're going to start today, by constructing the floating floor. There are 11 dies that come in this set. I've placed them on a magnet sheet for the video today, and I'm going to start first with this big die. This die cuts the floor and the extra supports, and I want to use cardstock. And since mine is a winter scene, I'm going to use white, so it'll just appear to be a snowy scene in front of the house. Any die cutting machine that can accommodate a wafer thin die will work with my dies, and I'm using a Sizzix Big Shot. This die cuts 3 pieces. The main one is the floor itself. It's done all of the cutting and the scoring. I can pop out those pieces that are in the slots themselves, and what's going to go through those slots are the 2 L supports. The L supports are just cut at the same time as the floor. That makes it really easy. They've been scored to have a little foot at the bottom, so I just need to find that score and then fold under those little feet. I also want to work all of the score lines that are in the floor itself. I'll start with that center support, so that needs to come up, so the first fold's a valley, and then it'll be 2 mountains. So I'm going to find the 2 score lines, fold them both as mountain folds, and that creates that little up and over support. There's 2 tabs on the back here that fold down, and that creates the back side of the floating floor that will attach to one side of the card. Then the other side of the floating floor is 2 mountain folds, and you'll see the score lines. It's actually very simple to make this floor. Now I'll add the tape that I need to attach this to the card. So I'll flatten it back out again. I'm going to add a nice strong red liner tacky tape, or you could use score tape, or you could use glue. And I'm going to add that tape to the outer tabs on all the sides of the floating floor, and then to the 2 feet of the little supports. Now that floating floor is ready to go inside my card. First thing I want to do is collapse down the center support into the closed position. So that means refolding it on that valley fold and bringing it down into this position. Card size is always up to you, as long as you have at least enough width, which is 4 inches, to hold that floor. And on the length, you want it to be as long as you need it to be for however tall your items are. Today for my card, I chose 4 1/4 on the width by 5 inches tall top fold card. So that means I start with 4 1/4 by 10, score in the middle for folding. And I'm just carefully removing the 3 liners from my tape on the back tabs, making sure that those outer tabs are lined up directly in the fold of the card, holding down my center support so nothing really shifts or moves, and then just giving everything a good press. So what I've done is I've connected now my back 3 tabs to the back wall of the card. Really simple assembly on this one. For attaching the other side of the floor, I want to flatten it now on the back side of the card. And then I want to fold in my 2 outer panels. So I folded them both in. See, I didn't do just the tape tab. That would not work. It wouldn't be correct. I need to have both the panels folded inward and flat. Then I'm going to carefully peel up the liner on my tab and close the card against it. And that creates the floating floor. And now it's ready for those L supports. For the L supports, it's just a matter of taking off the liner to expose the adhesive on the bottom of the foot. And then with my card open to 90 degrees, so I want to make sure that my floor is in its viewing position, because that will help me with placing my feet so that my supports will stand straight up in that viewing position. I'm just going to slide that sticky end of the foot down and attach it to the base of the card. So let me show you from the side. In that viewing position, I should have straight supports. In fact, I'm probably going to move that one just a little bit. This one looks perfect. So I'll just go in and unstick that 1 foot and just change the angle a bit. And then it is time to add the house and the fence. You have styling options with the house. You can just die cut it and leave it flat, or you can leave that paper in the die, change out your machine to have an embossing sandwich and then roll it back through the machine to press that paper up through that die to create that brick and siding texture to the house. It'll be a subtle tone-on-tone texture that you could leave alone or brush some ink across it, or if you want to have a very crisp texture, use the die as a stencil and brush some ink through it, and then you'll get a very crisp highlighting of that texture. And then I like to just brush a little of the same color ink around the edges as well. And then of course I'll want to spritz a little water on my die and immediately dry it just to remove that ink. There are several little decorator dies that go with the house. A little rectangle that you can glue behind the window openings. I like to use yellow and makes it look like the lights are on in the house. Then you've got a die that does the door frame and the door. Since I often want those out of two different colors, I use the first door as a chimney, and then I run back through with whatever color I want my front door with that same die. There's a die that does the roof pieces, and then two identical window frame and shutter dies, and that way you can cut both of the window frames at the same time. I like to just add a little glue around the window frame itself and then press it into position. That allows me to kind of lift up and shape those shutters without having glue underneath them. You could even add a pop dot underneath them, or you could go in and cut with another color and just trim out just the shutter piece and glue it over the top if you wanted to have a different color to your shutters. For adhering all those small pieces, you could just add some double-sided adhesive to the back of the cardstock before die cutting, and then all of those little pieces will become stickers. Or I just use my fine tip bottle filled with LINECO neutral pH adhesive, which is my favorite. I can get all those little fine lines of glue and quickly attach everything onto my house. And this house really doesn't have a season. You'll be able to use it year-round and with or without the pop-up. Since today's card has a winter theme, I thought I would add some snow to my house using some Nuvo crystal drops in the Simply White. And I'm just doing the roof lines, the top of the shutters, a little bit pooling in the panes of the windows. But then I need to set that aside to dry. The other decorator pieces that come in the set are the stone path, the fence, and the little die that does 4 wreaths. My snow has dried, so I get to start creating my scene inside the card. And I'll start by adding some adhesive to that center support and pressing the house to it. It doesn't matter where it goes. I decided just to center it and just give it a second to set up before I close the card and give it a really good press. I like to add the house first because that is going to set the location of my front door, which is what sets the location of my stone path. That stone path is designed to be half the distance from the front door to the edge of the floor, so you just need 2 of them butted up next to each other to create that stone path. 2 fences will go across the front of the floor just perfectly, which is not to say you can't trim those fences, extend them. You can just line them right up over the top of each other and make that fence as long as you want it to be. One of my favorite looks when I'm doing it with the house and the stone path is to have the last section of the fence not be glued down, bent outward just a little bit to appear to be a gate. Or another idea would just be to leave a section out in front of the path. So it's just kind of completely up to you. I decided just to do that gate look. It can't stay open, it's going to be mostly closed, but it has a little bit of dimension to it. There is a decorator die that will cut 4 tiny wreaths at one time, and the reason it cuts 4 is in case you want to hang them off of the fence posts, then with just one cut, you've got enough to decorate the entire fence. But they also fit on the house, so you can use them on the house either on the front door, you can hang them over the windows, you can hang them above the windows, so lots of ways you can use that cute little wreath. So now it's time for the finishing. The sizing of the large tree charm in the winter charms, which is 2 inches tall, is actually perfect for the scale of the house, and then I decorated mine with the small snowflake charm on top. Since I chose to do a pretty skinny card, my L supports are pretty close to that outside edge of my card. And what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to slide my tree over a little bit into the card so that the bottom branches don't stick out of the side of the card when it's closed. It's not a problem. As long as a portion of the tree touches my L support, I can still use it. So it's not like it has to be centered behind the tree. I just have to have some portion of the tree touching that L support. And I'll do that again on the other side, a little bit of glue on my L support, and then just line up my tree so that the edge of the branches is right along the edge of the card, and then press it to that exposed adhesive. So by using those L supports, you really get a lot of layers to this pop-up. I finished out my card's interior with a greeting from word set 3, and then the large snowflake charm, and a couple little strips of the pattern paper that I intend to use on the front of the card. My design process for the card fronts is usually just to repeat the same color, styling, and elements as the inside with just a simple little lead-in. So a fence with a couple wreaths on it, and I'm layering a couple of labels that I took out of the Katherine label pop-up. It has been my experience that people tend to display their pop-up cards open, since that's where the wow factor is. So I'm not really a fan of doubling my work. If I've spent a bunch of time designing a really cool card interior, then I just like to take the same elements, colors, styling, leftover materials, and create myself that simple lead-in. My finished card measures 4 1/4 by 5 inches. It will fit in an A2 envelope, and because I didn't put a lot of rhinestones and bulky embellishments on it, it will mail for a single stamp. There are just so many different ways that you can style this one. I think that you're going to find it a really, really versatile set. This is the packaging sample, which is a gingerbread version of the house. So exactly the same assembly. I just cut absolutely everything out of gingerbread colored cardstock and highlighted with a white gel pen. Or how about a haunted house? This one is styled using a couple of the new Halloween dies in the collection, the Halloween elements and the Halloween scene. And really, you can style that house for any season all year round. So here's a cute idea using the little winter animals just styled for a spring thinking of you card. So you can create your own neighborhood using the House and Fence pop-up die. If you click on the website link, you'll go to KarenBurniston.com, where you can find out information about purchasing these dies, as well as links to all of my other social media accounts. You can subscribe to this YouTube channel and check out some of my other videos. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.